Welcome back, everybody. Episode 8 of PTBO Connect. We're joined here by Brad Angevaare of Angevaare Motorsports. Thanks for coming, Brad.
Thanks for having me.
So reached out to you. Your story's pretty interesting. We have a lot of small business owners. You didn't really intend to be a small business owner. You just like making stuff. Like you get bored, you build race cars, you build jet boats, you build pretty much anything that can be built. And it turned into a small business over the last few years.
Yeah, it really honestly was an accident. It started with mom kicking me and my dad out of the house when the race car was too loud. So
I feel like I've heard this story. There was a moment where the decision was made you were no longer allowed to work on the race car in the garage.
Yep. It was late Sunday night. We had just dropped the V8 in the Miata. Naturally, with no supporting.
You just skip over the whole, there's a V8 in my Miata now.
So we had just casually put the motor in the car. And as boys will do, they won't wait till the next weekend. They won't wait till the next day during normal hours. I fired it up at 10:30 at night on open headers and shook the whole house when my mom's sleeping upstairs above the double car garage. And the next day, me and my dad started looking for shops.
I think the insult to injury on that, too, is that was also her car.
Yes, it was.
So she was woken up by the V8 in her Miata in the middle of the night.
Yeah, it started with her car. My dad picked it up for her when I was still at university. I'd come home during summer from school. Like, hey, let's do some wheels. Let's put a wing on it. Oh, let me take it to the track. It's going to be awesome. And then it's, hey, I kind of like going to the track. Maybe I'll enter some competition. Car needs to be faster. Let's put a supercharger on it. Sorry, Mom, I blew up your car. I need a new motor. And it happens to have twice the cylinders and almost 3 times the horsepower.
Right, because, you blew the supercharger before you went to the LS V8.
Yeah, so it was the factory Mazda motor with a supercharger. Overspun the supercharger and blew it up. Surprisingly, the motor was totally fine. It now lives in a drift car, actually, which is kind of funny.
Okay.
But yeah, so once the supercharger gave up the ghost, I decided I still want more. Let's go to a LS motor.
So you, going back to kind of the roots of Angevaare Motorsports, that's where it started, was you and your dad. It was racetrack on weekends, running around the track, see how fast you can make this thing go. And then I'm assuming around the time when, because obviously people are going to put 2 and 2 together on the name, you guys had Angevaare Mazda for your entire life. And then when that was sold off, you obviously needed somewhere where you could wrench that wasn't your garage at home and wasn't the shop at Angevaare. So you moved into the shop conveniently a couple doors down for where my shop ended up. That's how we met. And then, if I remember correctly, you had that guy moment where you're like, I've never done that, but I think I can do that. And you decided to build a boat. No,
exactly. That's exactly how it went. It was one of those, the race car was awesome. I wasn't needing more, but we had a trailer park up in Buckhorn, or a trailer in a trailer park, and around water. My dad always had boats when I was growing up. I was like, you know what? I need a boat. But knowing myself, I would get myself into a fiberglass boat and immediately wreck it, run it up on rocks, something stupid. So I saw this random video, and it was just it was like taking on a potato straight from New Zealand. Could tell what they were saying. And it was this little aluminum boat. And he just was jumping logs and sticks, and I'm like, that's what I need. That's what I'm building.
I actually was just showing Matt videos of that the other day from my phone, and I couldn't find a lot of them, but from the one that you had built for me, and it doesn't seem drastic once you've done it. Like jumping over a log in those boats just seems like what you do. But then when you go back and watch it or you show somebody else, they're like, wait a minute, why are you jumping that 10-foot log? Like, why is your boat in the air? That's not supposed to happen.
Like, I never saw those. And then he shows me one video of him. He almost lost an arm. And you guys are just sitting on top of a rock with your boat.
Yeah, exactly. We're treating these things like ATVs, like hitting jumps and whatnot. And we're going on the edges of the river instead of down the middle. Like when a boat's in the middle of the buoys and there's a log over there, I go around the buoys and show off a little, and they're just shaking their head. It's like, no, these things are awesome. But once I saw them, I knew that's what I was building.
Well, and there was kind of a moment for both of us. So you got started in the jet boats long before you built mine, and there ended up being, I think, 4 built that year, and we all started going out together. At that point, it was just go pull donuts in the water, like go play around in front of your cottage, go play around in Chemung Lake. And then we all got to experience what they were actually built for at the same time. And it was wild. And that was still a pretty calm adventure, but Matt's not exaggerating. There was a moment, and I'm sure he'll cue this up in the video somehow to play it. There was a moment where I came around a corner at a bit of speed because I had to get through these rapids and these rocks and jump over some stuff. And then all of a sudden I got distracted, which caused me to get stuck because your boat was 3 feet out of the water, teetering on a rock with you and your dad standing on either side of it. Like it was a surreal moment, because if that happened in any other boat, if that happened in, for lack of a better term, real life outside of these jet boats, you'd be screwed. Like you would have written off the boat. You would have been walking back 100 kilometers.
Oh, 100%.
You just push it off the rock and carry on.
Not to mention, like, you tell people, like, we got into this sketchy situation on this creek, and they go, oh, that's kind of awesome. And then you kind of have to remind them, yeah, this creek, that's 70 kilometers from the boat launch, 3 hours away from home with my boat. How do you, it's not like you can flag somebody down and get a tow. You can't call your buddy to bring his ATV out to tow you out of the ATV trail. It's like, who else in the area has a jet boat to come rescue your jet boat if it breaks down? Like, it's sketchy stuff we get ourselves into.
There was always a moment, because you go to a regular boat launch, you launch and you jump some logs and rip through the lake, do whatever. And then there's always that moment where one of them was like the two giant rocks that were so close together, we had to kind of teeter through there. And then there was another one where it was a low bridge. There's always a moment where you think to yourself, that's the point of no return. Like, from this point on, I cannot get screwed because nobody else is getting in here except for
100%.
us. Yeah.
Like you said, the low-hanging bridge, exact case. It's like, this creek is built for at most a kayaker.
Yeah.
Some canoes, you wouldn't even be able to duck low enough to get under this thing. And here we are, ducking and wedging underneath. It's like, nothing's coming back here to get us.
Yeah.
If the water level goes up while we're here, we're not getting out. If somebody breaks down, we can't tow it through this.
So, end of the season last year, all boats got sold. And because there's a huge market for these, and for anyone that's listening to this and wants one, all of our 6 listeners, you might get one of them convinced that they want one. All the boats got sold last year, and then you're building your own again.
Mm-hmm.
What's your boat? Because I haven't stopped by, half because I've been busy and half because I want to see your boat when it's done, because all of the little things that you've learned on everybody else's boats, and I think you're on what, number 7-ish, 8-ish now? I think
my dad's is 7, mine's 8, and we have 2 more to do. After these.
And so I imagine there's been some little tricks and some of the stuff, like when mine was done, we were running out of time. So you were excited to build mine because it was kind of like, all right, let's just do some really cool shit on this that nobody's done before. And then we ran out of time. So we just kind of put it together and got it finished. But I imagine some of those ideas that are stored away in your head are going out in your boat this year.
Yep. I definitely learned from my first boat. Mm-hmm. And it was, my first boat was great, but it was bare bones. Mm-hmm. Me being who I am, the mechanical engineer in me, the tinkerer, the curiosity, I got to do something different.
Your first, I'll cut you off there, because your first boat, you're making it sound like you cut corners and didn't put a lot. You built a boat from scratch out of flat aluminum and a donor Sea-Doo. I mean, it's not like you were just like, I'll take the easy way out. Like, for going back to the comment about like something you didn't know if you could do, your mom flat out told you were wasting your money ordering this kit and starting it, because she was like, there's no way he can do this. He can't build a boat. Like, boat makers are in this for like 100 years before they get good at it. He's just going to go build himself a boat. And exactly. It still worked.
It really was like that, because up until then, I knew how to TIG weld, but I knew how to TIG weld out of necessity to build the race car. Mm-hmm. So I'd done
a little bit of welding here,
a little bit of intercooler pipe, that little things that I have all weekend to get this one chunk of pipe done, kind of thing, right?
Yep.
Then it was quickly like, okay, I just ordered a kit. Mm-hmm. I'm now going to have a bunch of flat aluminum to weld together. Rumor has it I should be only 80 hours to weld it. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, 80 hours. I probably don't even have 10 total in my life, let alone the 80 I have to get done.
So I'm curious, because I've never actually asked you this question. So you're a confident person in your skills, but you're the first to admit that you're not professionally trained in almost any of these activities that you do. It's all self-taught, watch a YouTube video, learn from people around you. What was the actual reaction? You're now at this point, you've bought your donor, you have your first boat show up on a skid, and by that, it's flat aluminum. It's just cut. That's it. Mm-hmm. Was there a moment where you were like, oh shit, what did I get myself into? Or were you just like, yep, I'm doing it?
yeah, my mom and dad both kind of said, "Are you sure you're not wasting your money?" And I kind of took that as a bit of fuel to kind of just be like, I'm an adult. I can do it, right? Like, whatever. I don't care. So I did it. And yeah, there was a couple times where in the back of my head, it's one of those like, right off the bat, the very first weld you have to do is in 1/4 inch plate.
Mm-hmm.
The most I'd welded was 1/8.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, this is a bigger, longer, heavier weld than I've ever done in my whole life. And it is the one that literally keeps the boat together at the front.
Well, you start with the structure. So to learn on the boat is a scary thing. Like, you only get to the cosmetic, repetitive, I can do this over and over again once the boat's actually built, once it's together.
And there is no, I'll just fill it with Bondo and make it look good.
Yeah.
Like, if it's not good, it doesn't float. And if it doesn't float, it's not a boat. So yeah, there was definitely a couple key aspects that right off the bat were intimidating, but I didn't let it slow me down or stop me. It was just, I'll figure it out as I go, and that's kind of how I take on everything. And here we are. Like you said, like I'm deep into boat number 8 with 2 more coming and on the go. And by the end of the spring, I'll have 10 boats under my belt, a race car, and a bunch of other homemade things.
Well, because they're not, we're kind of dumbing it down here, and your entire first boat, along with some of the second, third, fourth, they're all on YouTube if somebody wants to search Angevaare Motorsports. But we're underplaying it. I mean, these are $40,000 to $50,000 boats. Like, they're not cheap. It's not like you're just playing with a few $100s in material and hoping it turns out. I mean, but just in raw material, by the time you're done this thing, it's $30,000 in material plus all the labor.
No, exactly. And it really puts it in perspective when you tell people, I just bought a $10,000 Sea-Doo to take apart.
Yep.
They go, what do you mean take apart? It's like, I literally take it apart and I scrap the part that's a Sea-Doo and I keep everything else.
Yep.
Like, it just baffles people, but it's like $10,000, but yet it's the cheapest way to do it.
Yep. So I bought, so I'm probably on Sea-Doo number 7 or 8 in terms of buying, and just I get offered more, so I sell them. And to go and spend, I think I spent $10,000 on my donor, and this was a written off donor, could never be used as a Sea-Doo again. And it was just like this gut wrenching feeling of spending $10,000 on a written off Sea-Doo. But then in the end,
grabbing a Sawzall the day you bring it home.
I wasn't there when you guys did it. I intentionally, even though the Sea-Doo was already written off, it didn't look like it from 10 feet away, and I let you guys cut that thing apart and take the motor out. I showed up while it was on the engine stand because I was like, no, I don't want any part of this. Same thing when the next 300 was done. I was like, this is sacrilegious. I don't want to watch this anymore.
It seems so wrong.
Yeah, but yours were running Sea-Doos. Like I'm not sure which one you used for this one, but like your original one and your dad's were fully functional Sea-Doos.
They all have been pretty much since yours. We've only actually scored on, well, my first Sea-Doo wasn't a write-off, but it had prior damage that was fixed. So it was kind of like I didn't feel that bad about it.
Yeah.
But since then, other than your actual write-off, they've all been running, driving, fully functioning market value Sea-Doos. And that's just how it goes. But the value comes from not taking apart the Sea-Doo. It comes from what you get out of it.
For sure. I almost got you a bonus one. I don't know if I told you, the day you were out testing Warren's boat at the boat launch across the bridge, like not the one at the bridge.
When you sank Tonka's truck.
Yes. I smoked. So I was impatient, and I had just bought a 2021 Sea-Doo with 0 hours on it just to use while you finish my boat, because I didn't want to be left out of everyone going on the lake and my boat wasn't done. And the first time out, I was just coasting in, just kind of like dicking around, waiting for you guys. And I felt the loudest and hardest thump on the bottom of it.
Your face was hilarious.
It was like, oh no, I just created another donor. Like, line them up. We're building another boat.
My face lit right up thinking, sweet, we got another.
That was my only fear when I'd send you or Jackson or Tonka out on the Sea-Doo, was like, wait a minute, these guys want it. Yeah, these guys want it wrecked so they can get a brand new 300 donor.
Yeah, so there's my dad on shore already talking up the next boat we're going to build out of that Sea-Doo, ripping around while I'm on it.
I knew I was selling that Sea-Doo as soon as my boat was done, and I still called the insurance company and insured it, because I'm like, no, the odds are too great that somebody is going to wreck this thing. So you've got, you said you're building what, 4, 5, 6 this year in total?
What is it? Five total,
including yours and your dad's replacement boats.
Yep.
So in 2, where are the 2? Because you started 2 a while ago. Are they done? One guy picked his up, right?
No, we still have that one. We're waiting on a few more things. We got to wrap, just kind of the finishing stuff. 2 are welded at a buddy's place, just waiting to kind of do the swap with shop space.
Yep.
And mine and my dad's are actually getting pretty close for wrap as well. So, so we're doing good. We should be on track for 3 done by mid-April. Then probably just do 1 at a time to just make sure they go quick, and get 1 done for, say, early June, 1 done for late June, hopefully, kind of thing. So
11s, 12s, 14s. What are these ones?
2 14s, a 12, and 2 11s.
So what are the ones that are being finished now?
2 11s and a 14.
Because I want to see the 14.
Yeah, the 14's a nice boat, but we can't build anymore. We have an agreement with B Shop.
Yeah.
He gets all of Jamie's 14s.
Oh, that sounds like a horrible agreement for you.
Well, there's other parts of the agreement
Okay.
where maybe we will have our own personal hull design
Okay.
come time.
Walk through windshield.
That
Oh, come on. I'd do another one. Sorry, Erica,
Maybe.
stop listening right now. I'm not building another boat. Don't worry. Now that Erica's gone, walk through windshield. Because it's
Make a checklist. Okay,
yeah, it's limitless what you can do with these things. Like it's the little touches. Some I liked, some I regretted. But I mean, one day it took us 15 minutes to decide we were chopping the windshield down a foot, and it was like, nope, we're gonna go low profile on this.
And even if we have a fully finished $50,000 boat and you drive it for a year, all it is aluminum underneath that wrap. You can take the wrap off, weld something new on, fabricate a new thing. It's a whole new boat for the next year, right? It's not like a car where it's like the end of the world to get a scratch on, and aftermarket mods are such a big deal. It's like, no, we can literally do anything. Like,
it's just aluminum.
Like you wish you had a tall windshield, we'll cut your short one off and put a new one on, rewrap it.
Well, they're not very big, right?
Well, it's funny. So they are mini jet boats. So they start at 10 feet, and the biggest we build is a 14-foot boat, which 14 is a good-sized boat. But in relation, we have a little 14-foot tin boat out back of our shop that gets a 9.9 tinner, and it's great for fishing. It'll hold 5 people, and we can fish for the day. This 14-foot boat will do 60 miles an hour in 2 inches of water and crash into whatever you want. So it's not a 14-foot boat as you would usually think about it.
Like if you hold up one of those keychains, Rob.
Yeah.
Like you can see what they look like.
Well, they're bigger than this, Matt.
Well, that's real size.
Yeah.
That's the actual size.
Yes. So we should be able to get 2 guys in there. We're not included.
Yeah.
But
well,
we got 6 guys sitting at this table.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you have to take everything into consideration. Like I learned a lot on my first one, weight displacement. So I weigh more than a half-filled gas tank. That made my boat ride at a pretty big angle, which sucked once you got into the off-road version of rivers, like into the shallow
narrow
stuff. If my boat was on that much of an angle, so it's little things like that you got to learn from. I either have to take a passenger or I can't let my fuel get that low. Like there was little things that we all learned stuff from the first round.
And it quite literally is just a size limitation, right? But you see the guys who've been doing this for years and what their boats look like to run up a skinny creek. It's a single seat in the middle, 10 foot at max with a lightweight 2-stroke in the back. They carry a jerry can as their fuel tank. They can go for 20 kilometers, but that 20 kilometers is bashing through stuff you usually wear rubber boots in.
It was definitely the needing 100 liters that made mine was extremely heavy for the size. Like mine was 11 feet and had a 300 in it. But by the time you got all the fluids in that 300, by the time you got that fuel tank filled up, the cuddy tank on top filled up, and then put 2 people in it, it was a heavy boat. For a very small, like your dad's would have been heavier, really. But yeah, it had more buoyancy to it because it was a bigger boat.
And a lot of it too, you see them built as like for the terrain, right? Right here in Ontario, we do have a lot of deep water. A lot of the rivers are deep. We have lots of open space in terms of lakes and whatnot. Whereas you see what a boat's built like out west when it's all rapids. They're bulletproof. They're lightweight. You have to be able to pretty much get that thing over anything because if you go up that glacier runoff, it might change by the time you're coming back down.
Well, so 100%. We ran into that one day even where it was all of a sudden it wasn't as deep going back as it was coming in, and it was like, we're gonna have to give it a little more throttle here.
It's like, was there really a sandbar there when we came in?
Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. So you're getting into customer boats, which is where it becomes a business, and that's pretty cool. So are these local guys, or how did these guys find you?
So it's funny. The one boat is actually, I think you actually met him in the shop. He's the whatever partner of the lady who bought.
Yeah, I saw his Denali there the other day. Yeah.
So just kind of one of those. He came and bought a Sea-Doo off us.
Yep.
And loved the boats.
Yep. Did you use that donor? Because that would have been cool.
No, I wish. It would have been awesome. No, that would have been funny.
Yeah.
And then the other two are, for a couple local guys. So, so far still, and it's all word of mouth. And really it's like 3 boats other than our own is plenty of time for us in the shop because it is still just part-time. Yep. I work nights and weekends and have a full-time job. So definitely keeps us busy.
Yeah. Have you figured out? So now I've always been curious, and we talked a lot about it because my business mind started racing once you started doing multiple builds at the same time. Have you figured out truly what the timeline is on a boat yet? Like, obviously, you know when you can have one done, but have you figured out how many hours go into it or how you could crunch it down production-wise?
We have a good idea. It's hard to put a number of hours on it. It really depends on what we're doing in terms of options, of course. Like if we're just going to weld a boat, put a motor in it and give you the keys, a boat could be in and out of the shop in 4 weeks. If we have everything, again, supply chain issues with everything. If we have everything, 4 weeks, and that's pretty much working every night after work and every weekend for a minimum 12 hours a day.
Which you say it like but that is what happens. Like that's weird there anyway. Yeah, it's very rare you're not in shop.
I'm not saying it like it's a chore. Like that's what I do. My spare time is go from work to the shop and work on what I have to work on. So it's just great that somebody else gives me something to work on instead of me having no more money.
Well, it becomes something where, you're paid to build something instead of it costs you money to build something.
Exactly.
It becomes all fun. Have you figured out how many cases of twisted T's it takes to build a boat?
No, that is impossible to calculate.
It just keeps going up and up every time.
Is that why I always have one when I'm here? Like, is that your plan?
What? Did we get you to build a boat?
No, to build one out of twisted T's. I feel like every time I'm here, he's feeding me one.
Now we're talking. We crush the cans down and we're an aluminum supplier. There we go.
Come on. Innovation, pal.
Yeah. It makes sense. Supply and demand issues.
Yep.
Yeah. We are the only one that can keep building boats if you're the only one with enough aluminum.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're not getting paid on that one, Matt.
That's fine.
So what's next? You're building these 3 customer boats, the 2 for yourselves to replace the ones that turned into customer boats last year. What's the next plan? You kind of alluded to there might be a custom Angevaare hull coming out at some point.
I don't know. Right now we're just playing it day by day. Me and my dad just got his hip replaced, so he's been out of the shop. He's antsy to get back. So it's pretty much just I'm gonna keep plugging away.
How dirty is the shop floor without your dad there?
I knew you were gonna bring that up too. It's not even bad. I promise I've been keeping it clean.
All right.
Yeah.
You don't have to convince me. It's him that's gonna wonder. He's watching the camera like a hawk.
I know. Maybe not as clean as he would keep it.
Yeah.
But I swear it's clean. We are starting to collect a pretty good pile of random cardboard boxes in the corner.
Yep.
But we don't need to worry about those. Inventory.
Leftovers last longer. Like there's some pros here.
Yep.
For sure. So race car coming back out this spring, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Hopefully you get a full race season out of it.
Yeah.
Is it where you want it, or is your focus going to have to split between working on I know last year there was all of a sudden there was a 3-week period where have to put the boats aside, have to get the car back to where I want it.
Yeah. So the car's pretty close. Just a few more maintenance things left over. Right at the end of the year, I did an entire overhaul of the electrical system. We had a weird...
I was about to say, it became a gremlin and all of a sudden wanted to run on its own.
Yeah, that was just... So the very last event we had, the car was running great all day, go out for one last session, and then in the pits, and they black flagged, somebody went off track, no big deal. So I'm sitting in the pits with the car off. Green flag goes, okay, sweet, go back on track. And just like that, I go to fire it up, won't run. Just nothing, won't even fire. I start smelling a bit of fuel, so I'm like, okay, it smells rich. I wonder what's going on. So I actually turned the fuel pump off, but kept cranking, and it fired. So I immediately turned the fuel pump back on, it ran.
Yeah.
Okay, weird. Pull it on track. I can see my dad at pit wall waving his arms in the air. I'm thinking, what's going on? The car's running like a...
running well, yeah.
No.
Oh, no, not well. Okay.
Yeah, like a bag of crap. Just running terrible. And I get to the point where it's just chugging. I can barely get a lap, pull off, and my dad's just like, yeah, you were shooting fire, like good fire, like 10-foot flames at the back of the car.
It always shot something. It was a pretty aggressive.
This was like the car's on fire kind of fire. So weird, whatever we say, it's been a good day. Let's put on the trailer. take it back to the shop. We think, okay, that was the last event. Let's dig into whatever's going on.
Yep.
We wash the car as per usual after a race day.
Yep.
It's sitting in the shop. My dad's just sitting on the couch, whatever. I ran over to Corey's shop to say hi.
Yep.
Next, thing you know, Dad comes into Corey's shop. You got to come back here right now. This is not right. What's the panic, right? We go back. He touches the main shutoff for the battery.
Yeah.
As soon as he hits power, it just cranks and fires up.
What did it end up being? Do you know?
Nope.
So just rewire it and hope you got it.
We did a little bit of digging. No idea why all of a sudden it thought it just always wanted to be running. I checked all the ignition, checked everything. Ended up just buying a whole standalone Holly system and rewiring the whole car. So,
yeah, because you already had the intake on there.
Yep.
And then, so now you just got the ECU and everything.
So I got to get it tuned. I have new control arms and stuff for it. So I have a little bit of work, but setup wise.
Are those the control arms you bought last year?
I bought only the rear lowers at the time because just budgeting,
Yep.
I could only afford the necessity ones. I kept blowing rear bushings out.
Fair enough.
But I went through another 2 sets of bushings this year in the rest of the control arms that weren't upgraded yet. So I got the rest of the set actually on Black Friday. So I've been holding on to them for a little while. So, so I kind of have to give myself just enough time to do the mods, get it tuned, hopefully make the first event, which is usually the end of May, usually in around May long weekend.
It's a pretty convenient time for taking a boat out too, though.
It is. You're right. So it's going to be a bit of a time crunch. We're hoping at least mine and my dad's are drivable. The first customer boat is gone, and the other 2 are kind of well on their way before we bring the car into the mix.
Yep.
But our shop's not huge. We still got to play around with space and everything. So
bigger shop, easy solution.
Yeah, I know.
Now, when you say race car, like a stock car or like a drag?
No, it's a Mazda Miata that we have just literally one thing at a time until now. There's not much Mazda left in it.
Okay.
It's it's a 2001 Miata, which used to be my mom's. That now has a 5.7 liter V8 in it. That makes about 400 at the wheel, and we run time attack. So fastest car for a lap wins. It's not like green flag to checker flag. It's just who is top dog, who ran the best lap today.
And is that just like here at Peterborough Speedway?
No, it's all over Ontario. So we mostly run Motorsports, TMP, which is down like Cayuga, Hamilton area.
Yeah, they've got drag strips there too, right? Yeah.
And then
but not drag racing. This is road track.
We're circuit.
That's how I know what it is.
Yeah. And then Calabogie. Calabogie's a nice track.
So that's like Ottawa Valley, right? Calabogie?
Yeah.
Up near Renfrew and all of it? Yeah.
Which one's the one you did the lawn maintenance on last year?
That's TMP.
Yeah.
That was a good one, yeah.
Mosport? Toronto Motorsports?
Yeah, Toronto Motorsport Park. Usually they all get a little bit of lawn care when I'm there.
There's a nice video of grass being thrown over the hood of his car when it cuts through the line.
I come around the turn one onto the front straight, just it completely goes out, and I'm like, well, there's concrete that way, but there's grass this way. We'll just go that way for now. And
that seems like a safe bet.
Yeah. And the worst part is so big clump of mud up over the hood, right stuck to the GoPro. It was perfect. Right?
Yeah.
And then lost the SD card. Like the files were all corrupt. So
you didn't have much luck with cameras last year.
No.
Just to bring that up. There might have been a GoPro attached to my boat that didn't make it back.
Have you ever seen the Facebook page Miatas with threatening auras?
Yes.
All I'm imagining now is your car with flames shooting out.
Oh yeah.
It already is one of the most aggressive old school Miatas, like not the new body style. It's pretty aggressive once you get like your front lip on there. You get those massive meaty tires on the rear,
the big air dam and everything. Yeah,
it already has an aura about it. It's not it doesn't need flame shooting from it to look mean.
I just imagine like the noise it makes when you start it up, because nobody probably expects that.
It's hilarious because
well, hold on. It's next to classy chassis. And you can tell when his car starts up if there's 3 or 4 bikes already running. Like there could be 3 or 4 Harleys running right beside him, and from 3 shops down, I could hear his car start. Like it's loud.
Okay, you need to hear it with the new tune. That's already so I'm gonna obviously get it professionally tuned, but with the bass tune I have on it now, it sounds nasty. Like it is crisp.
When you mentioned it was 400 horsepower, I was going to remind you it's 400 horsepower because your tuner at the time detuned it back to 400 because he's like, this is stupid. There's a video. A guy did a review. I don't know who it was. You can add that in, but
the Speed Academy one.
yeah,
right? Yeah.
Where he did a video driving Brad's car around the track, and all he kept repeating is, "This is stupid. Like this is absolutely
at the very end,
ridiculous."
he goes, "I have to say it. This is a man's car." And
Yeah.
it's like, it's a workout.
I'm looking at it now. Yeah, that thing's cool.
But there's definitely some photos and videos we can work into the YouTube
We'll
portion of this.
Throw up the car doing a burnout with the boat in tow.
I'm okay with that because it says Y Drive across the side of it. There was I did a TikTok for Y Drive, and it was Y Drive vehicles. And so what I did is I took a montage of everybody's video with their decal on the side of it, and I just snuck your car into the middle of it and circled the Y Drive decal on the side of it.
Perfect.
I think we were going around a corner on the track with it, or maybe it was the burnout. I'm not sure.
It was one of them, I think.
But no, it's a pretty mean car, and then obviously that went into the boat. So you mentioned what you're doing. I'm just curious, what's your dad doing for a boat this year? Is it one of the 11s or the 14?
I convinced him into an 11. He loved his 12. He loved the size of it. But
so to add to that, just for people obviously that aren't familiar with it, 12 isn't just a foot longer; it's also a foot wider. It's a lot deeper, a lot heavier. It's not the same boat by any means.
Mm-hmm. So he loved the size of it, and I always reminded him it's still a tiny boat. You can still take it anywhere, but he was all, I don't want to scratch it. I'll just hop in with you.
Yep.
So he spent a lot of the time when we were doing sketchy stuff in my boat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why don't you just build yourself a little boat and then also not care about scratching it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if I would want a little boat and what. And I'm like, they're worth money. You can always sell it. We'll build you another.
We all learned that last year. Like there's always somebody willing to give you more than it costs you to build it. Yeah, it was not a bad end of the year for anybody.
Yeah. So I'm building we're building 211s, almost matching, few little differences, both the 255 horse.
Which I think is perfect. The 300 was stupid.
Well,
and
255 I think is going to be a lot too, even, but it'll be awesome.
Are they dry? Are like their drive by
They're cable,
drive by cable, not drive by wire. The drive by wire to me is what made mine uncontrollable.
A little sensitive and
it was all over the map. The drive by cable would have definitely calmed it down a bit. You would have had the power, but you would have had to want to use the power, not just, he's touching the throttle again, give him everything. And it was a little sketchy at times for sure, and it made it really hard to maneuver over and around things because it was pretty much full throttle or no throttle. It was really hard to find anything in between.
Especially with the jet pump, because they are so inefficient down low that you kind of need to get the revs up. But with the 300, if you're not pulling enough water, it just revs to the moon because it's got all the power in the world.
I was going to jokingly say put a trolling motor on, knowing that Warren had a trolling motor because it'll get you at anything. I wasn't there for that, but that actually did happen where everybody got stuck and the trolling motor saved all the boats to get out. It was they went in and they were whipping around in this like what looked like a figure eight just off the river.
Well, really, the red flag should have been the whole, hey, I've never seen water there before. Let's go check.
Suddenly I see water. I'm not going to worry about how deep it is.
Yeah.
So they go in and they start ripping, and then one of them gets stuck. So then everybody else stops to see what's going on, which we all now know is not the right move. Keep going. So when
we found out we had about 4 inches of water and about 4 feet of mud.
Yeah. So every boat got stuck. So they took. Luckily, Warren wanted to build his rock bashing mini jet boat into a fishing boat. So it had a. Well, it still has. He's the only one who still has his boat. It has a trolling motor on it. So they used the trolling motor to tow all the other boats out.
It was just barely like catching a little bit of water, and the only thing that was getting going. Because that is the inherent problem with the jet drives is once they get mud in them, they don't cool the motor. Everybody thinks that's a huge downside until you remind them no other motor can go there anyway. So you're not in that situation with an outboard because you've already wrecked it.
It's a hard boat to get used to. I'll be honest, I got frustrated with it too early and didn't give it enough of a learning curve. But like I'd go out on my own, take a friend out on the river, suck up some weeds, and I wasn't knowledgeable enough on how it was built because I didn't build my boat to know like, okay, yeah, if you suck up weeds, it's going to clog up your sand trap, and then you're not going to be cooling your motor. So once I started to learn that, it was a lot more enjoyable because I knew what to watch for. It was like, I can't go buy your race car and enjoy it on the weekend because I would be so lost on how to maintain it and use it. Whereas because you built it and you're knowledgeable on it, it becomes a lot more fun. It's definitely a hard boat to just buy and then run. You need to have some knowledge on it or go out with people.
And you kind of need to know why to buy it, because a lot of the people that see these assume small boat, small price. Those things look fun. And so, for instance, somebody asked what I had into my original boat, and I said, I actually built it on the cheap. I got a lot of good deals, and obviously I built it myself. Yep. They're like, well, what kind of number figure are you into on your boat? So,
Can I guess? Because I actually don't know.
Yeah, go on my little black one. Go for it.
Including your donor, half of buying the 2 donors?
Yeah.
24.5.
Not quite, because we got a good deal on that donor. But I would put myself at a fair 20 grand into that boat.
Yep. But that's you took whatever seats you could get. At the time, you ended up upgrading, but you took whatever seats you could get. You took whatever decking was available. You took the smallest hull. You took the donor that was available to you. You weren't picky. You kind of went into it like, okay, I can take this, this, and this.
Because it was my first one, I kind of didn't know better, as well as I didn't know what to expect, right? So I didn't want to just go buy the most expensive stuff on the very first time experiencing this, right? But so when I told the guy, I got somewhere between 19 and 21 into it. He's like, oh, that's not bad at all. I want one. And I'm kind of thinking deep down, you think I meant $1,900?
Oh yeah,
right. I go, so
the stomp grade's more than that.
And I said, and I'd have a couple $100 worth of labor, so price it at say 30 grand. Just 30. I'm like, yep, you thought I meant $1,900.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm 19 grand into just materials, let alone all my time, right? So, and that's being conservative. That's not the R&D into it kind of thing even, right? Which you can't just straight up charge somebody for, but I had to learn how to build a boat somehow.
Well, and so last year, the beginning of last year, so the last winter's builds, that was a big part of it, is everything was new. At this point, I got to imagine that some of the stuff you're experiencing, you've already gone through, so it's going a little bit quicker. But your 12-footers, you built 2 of them last year. They both needed full back seats built. That was completely, they're always going to be completely custom, but you had also never done it before. So it was figuring out how to build it.
Because even now, all these boats are custom and not the same as the last, but you
figured out how to put a windshield in. You figured out how to build the rear seats, and
I've figured out the most efficient way to do something without it backfiring. Things like that. I know the steps to do next. I know what part should be done when I can put that hose clamp on forever without knowing I'm going to have to pull that hose back off to do something, right? So we've definitely upped our game that way. But like you said, I had built one boat, and then all of a sudden I got 4 buddies who also want boats.
Yep.
Well, here we go. Let's figure it out. And we got it done.
It's making stuff efficient. I remember when you built the rear of mine, I think it was the first one where you bench built the entire rear of the boat. And you literally built it in a night, and you turned around and you were like, that was a hell of a lot easier. To be able to build it on the bench rather than be on the ground upside down trying to weld everything together. You're just like, I'm going to build the entire rear section of the boat at chest level on the bench.
Whereas the first time building the rear of the boat, which would have been for my dad's boat at the time, was I don't know the best order of operation yet. I don't know what part to weld fully without it warping like crazy, right? Whereas once I figured it out for the first time, like you said, I just built yours on the bench because I knew what to expect. Yours was done in a night. The one prior was done in a weekend. Huge leaps and bounds in terms of time.
Well, and it's form over function too. I think that when you're building your own, there's a little bit more, you're building it for function. When you're building someone else's, it also had to have perfect form, and that took more time as well. You shouldn't, and I was on the negative side of that. I was on the side of I want that to be perfect. I want that to be straight. But in reality, they're not necessarily meant to be. There's no point in making that section look perfect because you're going to run out and hit a rock the first time out.
My boat's the perfect example because, again, we're trying to make, my dad being super picky, we're spending a ton of time on his boat to make it perfect. And then I go do the exact same thing in my boat on half the time. And at the end of the day, it's going to look the same when we both crash into that log, right? Like, and it's one of those, like, my dad's super happy with it now. I'm plenty happy with mine because I'm realistic, because I know testing the boat, I'm going to go crash into a buoy.
Two totally different people. Like, we'd come back from going out messing around for a day, and I'd go back my boat into my shop, rinse it off, do whatever, and then I'd walk over just in time for you guys to be like, yours are off or not off the trailer, but trailers are off the trucks and they're backed into the shop. You'll walk around yours, he'll walk around his, he'll come back with a giant smile and be like, didn't even scratch it. You'll come back and be like, I put a fucking hole in the bottom of it.
Exactly.
Like, it was two totally different hopes that day. It was like, you were like, let's see if I can break this thing, and then I get to fix it.
Well, the perfect example was the basketball sized dent in the front corner, when it's like, hopefully this doesn't split open and we can still go home.
There's moments, Matt, whenever you're on the water, that you'll hit something, feel something. I remember that one where we found those rapids and you couldn't see the rocks until you were over them. So you were doing them at 30 miles an hour, but it was like it was almost like video game. Like, it was just like you were trying to avoid them. You knew you were going to screw up every once in a while. And when you screwed up, it would hit hard. And I remember there was one where I went down through the rapids. I was doing like 30, 35 miles an hour. And all of a sudden I got to the bottom, and these things turn on a dime. So you watch some of Brad's videos because he's the master of it compared to myself or his dad or anyone else. But I got to the bottom and I just cranked it and I spun it around, because it's also kind of like rollerblading. It's the best way to stop is just to spin it on a circle.
Face it the opposite direction.
But when you spin, your rear end comes out of the water, especially on mine, because it was throwing so much water through. The second you stop, it naturally lifts the rear end out of the water. And I spun on my nose and then it dropped onto a rock, and it was just the loudest thud I've ever heard and felt in my life. And I was just sitting there and I'm like, for the next 3 hours, 2 hours, all you're thinking is like, half of you's worried and half of you's excited. Because I'm worried because I have to pay labor on the repairs. So I'm like, shit, I hope I didn't screw it up too bad. But you're also kind of like, what kind of damage did I do? Like, you're excited to get it back on the trailer. Like, every one of us,
forbidden achievement.
Every one of us, you would pull it out of the boat launch at the end of the day, and then you'd immediately be underneath trying to find, like, what did I do? Where is it banged up? Where's it scratched?
Battle scars, basically.
Yeah. His were always the greatest though. Like, he'd rip his like great half off. Like, there'd be like sections missing and giant dents. Like, it was excessive.
The best was when we were going down the autonomy. We're cooking.
Oh, this was when I wasn't there. This was your first rock.
No, okay, actually, that was a pretty good one.
That one was like, I don't want to do that one again.
That was the first hole in the boat.
Yeah.
That was that hurt. Whatever, we're going to carry on. We're sitting at the sandbar, and I'm thinking, my boat's sitting pretty low. It's not even a second later, the bilge pump kicks on. I'm like, that's kind of weird. I open up the hatch, it's all full of water. It's like, okay, so that rock put a hole in it. But I just let the bilge pump run, pump the water out. We went home, put it up on the trailer, and welded the hole shut. No big deal.
Yep.
But no, the one I was going to say was when we were cooking down the middle of the river, and I swung the ass end out and hit the buoy and caved the whole side of my boat in.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I look over, my dad's just shaking his head.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was sick.
Brad's like, when it comes to these boats, and not to take any credit away from the ones who did it before him, all the New Zealanders and Mini Jet for designing it and all that kind of stuff, but Brad's like the father of all the boats that he's built, and almost to an extent where like he knows how to do it better than any. Like, you could have jumped into your dad's Warren. Well, you did. You jumped into your dad's, you jumped into Warren's, you jumped into mine, and beat the crap out of them. And to the point where like we're standing there worried about our stuff, and you're just like, no, I can handle it. And it's like, they're all your little babies, and you know exactly how to drive each one of them different. Like, I'd go and I'd take somebody out at the sandbar, and then I'd be like, no, and I'd go back in and I'd be like, Brad, go take them, and then just watch you go, because you knew how to get so much more out of that boat than anyone else would be able to get out of it. And mine was scary. Like, mine was to the point where like your jitterbug, which was your 10-footer, the first iteration, you could, if we were at the sandbar right now, you could toss the keys to Matt and be like, go try it.
Yo, yeah, you couldn't hurt the thing.
Not doing that with mine.
And
like,
you say that, like, and I say, like, oh, you won't hurt it. And naturally, a stranger's going to be like, well, deep down, I don't want to wreck it. But it's like one of those, you can't, because I would have already. Yeah. Like, whatever.
If you could break it,
whatever
would be broken.
A stranger can do, I've already done and either fixed it or it took it. And it's one of those, if a stranger finds a fault in my boat, perfect, because I will fix it and it'll be a learning experience. So when I told people, hop in and take it for a ride, you can't break it, I meant it.
The mistake with mine, which I'm curious to see Jackson's for the same reason. The mistake with mine is speed should never be the goal. And it was like,
tried to tell you that.
well, but admit it was still fun to do once.
It was sick.
Yeah. But like mine was, I would never hand the keys to somebody. I went out with Brock and I gave him the key. He was the only person I handed the keys to for more than like just go spin around or whatever. And in the passenger seat, it scared the crap out of me just due to, I know how little control that boat had at 55, 65 miles an hour. Like it would, I think we topped it out at about 67 or 68 one time. And it was stupid. Like it was scary. I almost killed your dad.
Well, me and Jackson almost, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Me and Jackson.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry, just give me a 45-minute warning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
One day we'll do that subtly.
Yeah, we won't talk about it. Yeah.
The signal will just be a signal.
Exactly. Well, it was a weird, like, he's like, well, I want to say something, teacher.
4 and 5. Come on.
But yeah, you and Jackson, this was basically testing still.
It, like, the water was still way too cold to swim, kind of early in the season. It would have been, well, Easter weekend was the first weekend we went out. It would have been the 2 weekends after Easter.
And when you went out on Easter weekend, you were driving across ice.
Yeah, it was
like
awesome.
you were ripping like the opposite of snowmobile puddle jumping. You were like, I think I can get from that spot of water to that spot of water going across that snow and ice.
Yeah.
And you did.
Yeah. But yeah, so me and Jackson, I was driving at first and he was passenger. We were out in the middle of Chemong, then switched seats.
Yep.
And I said, like, this thing is horny, like, hang on to her.
Yep.
So he's driving. And it was no fault of, we found out what caused it. It was no fault of the driver, obviously. But we're cooking. We're doing, like 66, 67 miles an hour. And the thing, out of nowhere, switched ends. Like, and it whipped so fast, I felt like my neck and back all cracked. And I just saw at the corner of my eye, my hat was doing a perfect pirouette. landed right, like, on my leg. Like, like I caught my hat. And then, like, Jackson's looking at me, I'm looking at him, and Tonka was on your Sea-Doo at the time, and he's looking at us, and we're all just like, what happened? Like, how many times did we spin around?
There was a couple of those moments, though, because did we ever figure out what happened? Was it just the rear end lifting when we let off? Like, something happened when your dad and I were in it?
Yeah. Essentially, when you let off, because you're going so fast and the water's moving so fast, the water relies on going up through the water intake through the
which
pump
sucks your rear end down into the water.
Like downforce. It's like as if you took the wing off of an F1 car, what would happen? So when you let off the gas and the impeller stops moving, water stops going up and through, and it pushes the back up instead of letting the water flow through. So yeah, you will, if you let off almost like too quickly to the point where it blocks up the water and you lose all control. Water stops flowing through the pump. You have no steering.
Absolutely. Sketchy feeling for sure. But no, that was the drive shaft.
And then also, another thing. But so we were having that problem with your boat, and that's when we put the loader plates in. But when you and my dad spun out in the middle of the Autonomy, that was the drive shaft tearing itself apart.
We were going along the Autonomy River. I'm not going to exaggerate and say there's like 8 feet on either side. There's like 30 feet on either side of us. It's 60 feet wide. We're going down the middle.
But we're like 3 boats wide when this happened.
And I'm doing, this was me trying to speed test this. This was like our second or third time out.
It was like me and Jackson side by side, and you were coming up and flying past.
I was trying to go by you, and luckily I didn't get to you guys before it happened. So I'm flying up because mine was probably about 10, when the wear ring was still good, it was about 10 to 12 miles an hour faster probably than the other boats. And
more than that. Mine only did about like 48, 50 miles an hour. So you're doing 65 plus.
Yeah. And my drive shaft sheared, like the inside, and completely disconnected. So it caused that issue that you're talking. So had a drive shaft have just sheared and you didn't have the problem of the boat lifting out, then it would have been fine. I just would have lost power.
Well, the problem though is with a jet boat is the only thing that keeps you steering is moving water.
Exactly.
So you don't have a rudder. Like an outboard boat has the propeller and a rudder. So if your outboard quits, you can steer the boat as you're coasting.
Yep.
With a jet boat, you're relying on the fire hose coming out the back to steer you. So if you lose your fire hose and you're doing 60 miles an hour already, that thing's going wherever it wants.
Just a raft at that point.
I can still tell you which dock it was that we were looking straight at. So we're going straight in the river, and I see the two of them on either side of me up front. I'm about to cut in between them, and all of a sudden you just hear this shearing sound, which we didn't know what it was at the time. Now we know, and it makes sense. But the shearing sound of like, and then all of a sudden,
an awful whine.
All of a sudden, this 1,100-pound boat turns left and goes straight for the docks. And it was like I had nothing because the drive shaft was sheared. So I pulled on my brake, nothing.
You don't have reverse to slow down. You don't have steering, nothing. You're just literally along for the ride at that point.
There was nothing you could do about it. And so luckily boats stopped pretty quick because they just dig into the water. But I just remember your dad and I looking at each other and it was like, oh, that could have ended a lot worse.
Yeah.
So from then on, I only did speed tests when people weren't around and I was in the middle of lakes. It was like, I remember going back shop class. So when I was doing my collision junior apprenticeship, there was an automotive repair class next to us. And it was the trying to think of his name. He was an Italian teacher, really great guy. Knew him all through high school. And somebody came in one day in like a Dodge Neon and did like an e-brake burnout, front wheel drive, and then let go and car took off. And so he got reamed. And it wasn't like he got reamed for being a guy or doing something. It was like, if you lost a tie rod at that moment, you were taking out 15 people. Mm-hmm. Like that's the stupid part. The stupid part isn't doing burnouts. He's probably done many burnouts himself. The guy drove a Cutlass to work every day. It's the fact that it was like, no, you did it while facing 15 people. If something went wrong and you lost control, you're screwed. And that was kind of my moment of that. It was like,
something happened and it wasn't bushes on either side. It's somebody's $250,000 wakeboard boat.
And we've hit those too, though.
Yeah.
We've hit some bushes and
the bushes we aim for. Yeah, that's totally
So with that being said, you're not dropping the Miata engine into one when you retire it.
There's been talks. Rotary motor.
The look on your face.
So if we weren't so busy building boats that need to be delivered to other people, then yes, I would be in the midst of dropping an LS into a boat, because that is still the end goal, to make a tiny little boat that has 400 plus horsepower out of a big nasty V8, will do 90 miles an hour and also drive in 2 inches of water and crash into rocks.
I think the weight is the obvious issue, but at the same time, as a secondary boat, it would be absolutely
I would not replace and I will never ever rely on something bigger than, say, this 11-foot boat or my 10-foot boat. I loved the little one. It's awesome. It took me everywhere I wanted to go and more.
Yep.
But as a second boat, it's going to happen. Not an if, it'll be a when.
So are you recording these builds? Like,
within reason, we're more so recording my own and my dad's.
Yep.
We're kind of pointing out some more of the finer details of not the boat build, but of the little aspects of it.
Lining up the motor, stuff like that.
Because, I mean, we've already done the whole, here's us welding for 100 hours, right? So we're trying to more concentrate here and there on the interesting stuff, I guess I should say. The customer boats, it's one of those just, we're too busy getting them done that even me and my dad...
That part's a business. You got to make money out of it.
We just forget to pick up the camera and stuff. But when we're just thinking about our own boats, it's easy to think, while we're in the midst of doing all this, we should probably film something.
What was... I actually can't remember. But what's funny is I can't remember what the action was. But there's a couple of them. So it's me. I'm trying to figure out which one it was. We created a drinking game of it. I remember that. The videos of you and your dad building Jitterbug and then welding together the other hulls. There was a
running joke was just how many twisted tees you would see within a given video.
And it was every time he took a sip on video, you had to take a sip while watching it.
Because it's funny, because during the early parts of the boat building, we're literally just fitting parts, a single tack weld, and then my dad goes and sits down in the background while I weld it. So it literally goes, okay, here's how you fit these together. And now cut to my dad in the background drinking his twisted tea while I'm sitting there welding, which is just hilarious. So it became a game, pretty much keep up with Rob while you're watching this video.
It was actually fun watching him because he was the service manager at Angevaare when he owned it. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of fun. He'd catch himself being the service manager of the shop, standing there watching, telling people what to do. And then he never intended, we made fun of him so much for it. There was times where we'd make fun of it or laugh about it. There was other times where it was irritating, but at the same time, he didn't really mean to. You would see him catch himself and realizing oh shit, they're not my place.
Well, that's the problem too, is he is so stuck in his ways of being kind of a delegator in a shop setting. So it's hard for him to not be a delegator in a shop setting. And it's one of those go for it then, be a delegator.
Yep.
But I also tell them off a few times, and
it was a fun relationship to watch.
Yeah.
Like it was entertaining at times.
But what Warren compares to Paul Sr. and Paul Jr.
But then Warren also had his own personality there. That guy had like, I'd come over and be there for an hour and then leave, and then come over and be there for an hour and then leave. But like Warren had his spot on the couch. Like there was times where I'd walk into your shop and he'd be sitting there watching Netflix.
Well, it got to the point where
they weren't there.
He would beat us there.
Yeah.
And like we'd be out like getting metal or supplies or whatever. And it's like, Warren, we won't be at the shop till 11 today. Yep. All right, I'm already here. It's like, Warren, it's 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, no, there was definitely times where like I'd stop because I was working out of there at the time. It was my office, like 2 doors up. And so I'd see his car and I'd wander over and I'd be like, oh, what are you up to? And he'd be sitting on the couch eating like a burger and watching Netflix on the TV. And I'd look at him and be like, Brad here soon? Like we were building my boat. So I'm like, is Brad here soon? Because like I was anxious to like get stuff done. Like, and he'd be like, oh no, he's at work. He'll be here after like 5 o'clock. And it's like,
and this is like when I'm at work, like everybody knows I work till 5 and then we start, but I come into my own shop and you and Tonka and Warren are there. My dad's coming after dinner and I'm there. It's like, it is funny. Yeah.
No, it was a pretty entertaining. I mean, there was times where like, you guys would show up after work because a lot of the time, Tonka would get there early. Warren would be there half the day. I'd be there already getting hungry. And like you guys would show up and there'd be burgers on the barbecue.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
Yeah, Warren's got the place clean and it's like, okay, let's get to work,
like,
I guess.
I'll actually build boats for free if you just feed me.
Deal. Erica, see, it all came together at the end.
Free. Exactly.
So, I mean, we pretty much covered it all. We're definitely going to have to throw some links into this one, which isn't something we've done before. So hopefully producer Matty can figure that one out.
I'll be good.
But some pretty crazy videos. Check out Angevaare Motorsports on YouTube. It's pretty entertaining stuff. I've actually got to get some videos and photos. I tried looking back in our river group chat thing to grab a bunch of them, and there's just a lot that aren't there.
I got a bunch of stuff if you need it. My dad will have my dad has a whole repertoire on his phone, and all he has is time to scroll through them right now. So
I still have all that content on the computer. I haven't even gone through half of it. The problem was those 360 cameras. 360 cameras
they took up a lot,
and it was painful to have to go through. So it was like you'd only be looking for like a 5-minute section, and then you'd have to go through like 4 hours of content, and you'd have to render it all in order to see it. The one I definitely want, I think it's on your TikTok, but Matt definitely has to link to is the double angle of Jackson's boat to your boat. That was awesome. Or Jackson's boat to your dad's boat.
Yeah. And so my dad and Tonka spraying Jackson and our buddy Mitch. That's awesome.
That was the one thing the 300 was good at, and I miss about it because I don't think any other powertrain will ever do that. Was the rooster that came off of mine?
The new 300s with the IBR. The rooster tail was like just relentless water.
It was. I obviously was never in behind it because I was in the driver's seat, but it was
lucky for that.
Yeah, it was abusive. Like it had to be 40, 50 feet in the air.
Oh yeah.
It was.
We can go like within 100 feet of you if you're and you driving like a dickhead. On and off the throttle, and it's like 1 second you're like, okay, we're all just driving normal down this 8-foot wide creek, we're gonna be fine. Oh nope, there's Rob's full throttle, and now I'm drenched. Everything I brought is wet. So is lunch.
There was the one video, and
yes, that's awesome. The one.
There was the one moment, and it was in like your longer edited video. Matt saw it the other day, and I know I've told you that before. I absolutely didn't intend to do it, but you knew because you could see the look in your face, like this was dumb of me just standing here. But the one where it was when your boat was on the rock.
I was pushing you up and guiding you through, and then you hammer on it. I'm just like.
He was 5 feet behind the boat and it was a wall of water. Yeah. And just the look of you knew it was being recorded. So he just looks at the camera like,
I was so defeated.
Really?
And like, bear in mind, the water was still cold then. Yep. Like it was, when was that when we went?
No, it was like May, June, but it was running river water. So it was always going to be cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when it comes at you at 200 miles an hour, it's going to be cold regardless. So, but I appreciate you coming in. Definitely check the boats out. I mean, we're not expecting people to watch this video and go run and order $50,000 boats, but if nothing else, watch the YouTube videos, support them that way, and it's just entertaining if nothing else.
Throw us a follow on social media.
Yep.
Check out our Facebook, Instagram, everything. that helps too. So
the one entertaining thing about following you on social media, whether it's the race car or the boat, is come summertime, there's always going to be footage of something getting wrecked, hit, destroyed, built, improved on. There's always something entertaining going on.
I'm pretty good at wrecking my stuff. Yep. And my dad is usually pretty good at uploading the proof of it. So
he's pretty quick at that.
He is.
Yeah. That's why I was actually, when Tonka started going with you to like race weekends and stuff like that, I was like, oh, he's taking all the work away from your dad. Like, it was like he'd come back, and on the way back while you guys were driving, he'd be like sending it to everybody, like, check out what Brad did, this is awesome.
But it was also good because then more content naturally.
Exactly.
Like multi angles of me cutting grass at TMP for free.
Yep.
Like, you're welcome. Not only did I pay to be there, I also cut all your grass.
Yep. And avoided the wall, which is key. Yeah. So that Miata, I have to ask, and I'm not going to ask anything that'll jinx anything, but I mean, in your dad's garage, you've got a Z06. In your garage, quote unquote, you've got the Miata. You've got the race boats. Are you content with what's in the fleet right now, or is there something else? Like, you're working full time, you're making money off the boats. There's got to be something where you're like, there's got to be a goal or something on the picture board that you're aiming towards.
I'm very dead set on trophy truck style. Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Building it or buying it? Ideally
building it naturally, because I am a builder. So whether it starts out, I have my heart set. Well, right now I have my heart set on a Bronco. I want a new Bronco.
New Bronco.
Yeah. Brand new Bronco.
I don't know if you should be allowed to drive anything new.
Right.
Like, it's
correct.
Who's going to insure it?
Right.
You already ran into that issue with one of your cars.
Maybe. But,
that'd be fun though.
But yeah, so I mean, the car has kind of hit a plateau with classing and racing. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much for the chassis. Mm-hmm. I can't grow I'm to the point where $1,000 doesn't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. $5,000 doesn't go anywhere. So the next step is very, very expensive. Mm-hmm. It'll be a complete overhaul. The boats are awesome. Mm-hmm. They're kind of one of those, like, you build it and that's it. Just keep fixing it when I break it, which happens often.
Yep.
But yeah, so
that's why I like RC. So on a much smaller scale than jet boats. I like RC because you get to have fun bashing it, but then you also get to go and order parts and then rebuild it once you've broken it.
Very realistic budget.
I mean, I wouldn't say they're realistic anymore. You can spend some really stupid money.
That's why I didn't say low.
Yeah,
it's realistic.
I went to fix one that's in the garage. So Liam and I both got SX10s or whatever they are. Yeah, like the ones
I got the baby one, the SCX 24.
Yeah,
and I just drive around in my bedroom. It's hilarious.
So I got the 10 Bronco, and then he didn't actually get the SX10. He got the F450 scale truck. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you go to order like a front bumper and it's like $123. And you're like, what? It's a toy. But it's fun. Anyway, I'll say thanks for a fifth time because I keep rambling on. But it was great to see you. I can't wait to get down to the shop, see what's going on there. And I'm sure, like always, Matt learned something today, and we'll have some fun digging through all the content.
I've learned I got to get on a boat. That's all I've learned.
I think that has to happen. At some point this summer, you got to take him out for a spin 100%. And show him what a donut does.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Let's do it. We'll meet up.
All right. Thanks, man. It was great to see you. And everyone tune in next week. We have Lisa Couture from Couture Candy. So now I'm sure everybody knows who she is at this point. She got, 1 million views, 1.3 million views last week.
1.4 last time I saw
1.4. So, it's what's crazy is the video that got her 1.4 was her boxing candy. Like, she's like, I have no idea how this hit 1. Out of all the stuff she's done and going hard on TikTok, she got 1.4 million off of her being like, another order, and then putting candy into a box. It's phenomenal that it couldn't happen to a nicer person. And we get to talk about it next week. So tune in.